right. Oops. I did not mean to do that, but here we go. All right, today's session is small multifamily 101. So as I said, I'm going to go through a little bit, as I said, with all the topics that I cover. This is a picture of our group. We haven't done it for a while, but occasionally we would go out on a road trip and look at a foreclosure or look at a couple properties. We'd bring along a couple contractors, and then we talk about the opportunities as they, as a group. And that's a big part of the group. So what this group is about is learning, networking, and deal making. These are the three fundamental things that you do as a real estate investor. Kind of, this is like oxygen. This is like what you do on an ongoing basis. So that's what you do as an investor. So that's what we do as a group. So these are the topics that I have distilled down into, what are the major things that real estate investors deal with on a regular basis, if not a daily basis. So this is like, a dozen or so, a baker's dozen of topics that I cover. And as I say, I'm going to be doing them in a series of, live sessions that are being recorded. So if you can't be here or you want to review stuff because there's a lot of information, I will have those available on an ongoing basis. But this is a list of the topics that you will need to familiarize yourself with and learn about. And the other thing about learning is that you never really learn everything. You're always learning every day. I'm in the business 22 years and I'm still learning new stuff every day. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot overview of real estate investing in a nutshell, from my point of view. And I'm only one guy. I don't have, I don't know everything. I know what I know and I know what my experience is. And this is a distillation of that. So today's objectives are, as you can see on the screen here, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and again, very basic. And when I teach these classes, I come from the point of, uh, that people, you know, I know folks on the call here, some folks have various levels of experience, but I come from the place of, if you have no experience at all and you kind of don't know, you don't even know what you need to know. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you need to know. So I come from that kind of basis. So today's objectives are, just how to get started, how to find opportunities, how to analyze deals, due diligence, which is a huge component of any real estate, but certainly small multifamily units as well. Financing multi-unit deals, because it's a little bit different than single family property investments as well. And I'll give you a couple resources to go to for further study and the like. So how to get started. So I am always an advocate of creating a plan, setting goals and creating a plan. So everyone comes into, any new venture, not just real estate. I want to start this new venture. I obviously want to make some money and be successful in the venture. Hopefully it will help me in my retirement, supplement my W-2, take me out of my W-2, whatever your personal wishes might be. You have to start from there. You start from your wishes, which is what you think about and dream about and read about and things like that. And you take those wishes and you start putting them into goals and plans. And that's the sequence. We say that a goal is a dream with a deadline, and a plan is, your specific strategies and tactics to execute that, to achieve that goal. So set goals, create a plan. I encourage you to do it in writing. I encourage you to, consolidate how best that you learn individually. Is it settings like this, webinars? Is it YouTube videos? Is it books, podcasts? There's a good chance, if you're a successful real estate investor, you have an insatiable appetite to learn. So you do all of those things, and you can do all of, there's so much available now and so much out there. You can do all of those things forever and never take action. And you say, well, if I if I read this one more book, if I take this one more class, then I'll get started. If I do this, then I'll get started. I always say that those things are all great. You should be doing them always, but you shouldn't be doing them exclusively. And those of you who have been in the business and who have done deals before know that, your first deal is your best education. And then your next deal is your next best. And you have a whole new education based on each deal that you do. But don't be afraid to do that. Don't think that, there's no degree that you're going to get or certification that you get and says, okay, you're an investor, now you can go out and invest. You have to develop that within yourself. So that's the overview of setting goals and creating a plan, because how you do the other steps that follow are based on that foundation, the foundation of your goals and the foundation of your plan. Otherwise, you're just out there chasing shiny objects, and you're not going to make any progress in any particular direction, and that will cause you to get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, people have a tendency to give up, and I see that all the time. So today you're going to learn how to construct an APOD and what an APOD is. And I always remember and use the example of when I was brand new, I wanted to learn about analyzing multi-unit properties. And I went to an associate of mine and I learned about a deal. And I said, Barry, I'm brand new. I'm learning about this deal. This might be an opportunity. Can you help me? And he said, yeah, Brian, I'd be happy to help you. Show me the APOD. And I said, what's an APOD? I didn't even know what an APOD was, and you might not know what an APOD is today. So an APOD is an acronym, and it's an annual property operating data sheet. So you learn in real estate, there's lots of acronyms. So that's an acronym that there was a day way back when I didn't know what it was, and today might be that day for you. It's annual property operating data, and it's a common knowledge in the world of multi-unit property investing that investors refer to. And it's basically what it basically is. It's nothing fancy. It's a balance sheet and a profit loss statement and a cash flow analysis for a multi-unit property. It's just like any balance sheet, for any business has a similar type of thing. They don't have the APOD acronym, but you'll learn what an APOD is. I've got a sample form that I'll give you in the back end, and I'll show you how to fill it out and things like that. So basically, you're going to learn that. You're going to learn how to construct a profit and loss statement. So based on that, you're going to start formulating ideas on what is a profitable investment opportunity for you. And here's the point in the presentation where I say that, how a particular deal looks to one investor is different from how a different investor might look at it. So not every investor looks at every investment opportunity the same way. That's a really challenging thing to learn, especially when you're new, because you're worried about, you're worried about missing an opportunity, or you're worried about, getting into an opportunity that might not be good for you. So this is the point where I say, keep your focus on staying in your own lane. And that's when I say create a pro forma ideal investment. Okay, I'm going to circle back to that's based on your individual goals, your short-term, medium, long-term goals, and I do a whole class on goal setting, and your specific goals, which is your next deal. So create a pro forma, meaning make up a deal that plugs up into your goals, if that makes sense. So you should go through my goal setting class to break this out specifically, but that's the basic idea of it. You're going to create a pro forma ideal investment that you're going to have on one side of your ledger, so that when you start looking at properties that are on the market, like I'm going to show you 33 properties in Washtenaw County that are on the market today, right now, you're going to be able to analyze those deals and compare it to your ideal investment opportunity, if that makes sense. And the closer the actual deal is to your ideal deal, that's what makes the world go around. That's what makes you say, yeah, I want to take the next steps on this deal. I think I want to pursue this because this fits into my model. We also call it your buy box, your pro forma ideal investment, your buy box. That's another buzzword that's used in the real estate industry. Um, I publish out on a semi-regular basis a multifamily hot sheet, which is properties that are on the market and properties that are new on the market. I send those out to the group, so you see what's on the market and see if those are opportunities that fit with what you want to do. Practice working through these analysis steps. And if you've never seen it before, um, if you've never seen these analysis steps, this is going to be a little bit like a fire hose. It's a little bit overwhelming. If you're someone who likes math and formulas and spreadsheets and working with the numbers, this is right in your wheelhouse. If that's not your comfort zone, you need to get it in your comfort zone, okay? Because that's what these multi-unit deals are all about. It's all about the analysis and formulas and different metrics that different players in the landscape look at, most notably the lenders who you're going to work with on these multi-unit deals. The lenders are the ones who base their decisions based on the numbers and certain formulas, and I'll get into that in a moment. I want to really encourage you. This is a habit, um, doing things and achieving goals are nothing more, and I'm oversimplifying, nothing more than creating new habits. We all have habits. Some of us have good ones, some of us have not so good ones. We want to get rid of the not so good ones and do more of the good ones. A good habit to get into that I started a long time ago based on a recommendation from another member of the group is to develop the discipline of analyzing a deal a day. Okay, that's simple. And it sounds like, oh, wait, that's simple. That's digestible. That's not too overwhelming because we all have life. We all have other jobs. We have families, hobbies, other interests, other demands on our time. So a common thing is, oh, I want to get involved in real estate investing. I don't have the time. Well, do it in small chunks. And this gentleman in the group, he developed a discipline. He says, all right, I've developed the discipline. I put in my calendar 7 o'clock every evening, I'm going to carve out 30 minutes, 45 minutes once a day and analyze a deal and work on the numbers and look at it different ways and analyze it. So I learned how to do that. And, guess what? If you analyze a deal a day for a year from now, you will have analyzed over 360 deals. How much smarter will you be a year from today than you are today if you've analyzed 360 deals? Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you have to buy 360 deals, but it's getting into the practice of analyzing the deals. And it's like practicing anything. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more confidence you have in your abilities to do that. And building that confidence makes you more confident when you're ready to buy your either be it your first deal or your next deal. But it's a really powerful habit that I really encourage you all to develop. We all have a tool now. I still like to do deal analysis old school with a pad of paper and a pencil and a calculator. You can obviously do spreadsheets. We also have, a tiger by the tail in AI or Chat GPT that you can plug the information into there and they will spit out an analysis for you. You can do that. I encourage you to use it, but I don't encourage you to use it exclusively. I encourage you to also learn how to do the old school version, especially if you're going to make a career out of this. But that's a habit, put that on the top of your list. Analyze a deal a day and try and develop the discipline of analyzing a deal a day. And just because I say a deal a day, it doesn't have to be a gospel for me. You can do one a week, you can do one a month, whatever you're comfortable with. Don't do a deal a day just because I say it. But if you're going to be serious about it, find a regular pattern. 3 days a week, I'm gonna analyze 3 deals a week. I'm going to analyze 7 deals a week. I'm going to analyze 1 deal a week. Whatever it is, as long as it plugs back up to your goals and your plan, use that as a specific tactic in this business and in this part of the business. Okay. Here's elements of the APOD. I'm going to take a sip of coffee here, if you don't mind. So these are terms, okay, elements of the APOD. And again, these are terms that they're important in real estate investing. Well, why are they important, Brian? Well, they're important because these are the numbers that the lenders look at. Okay. And you're not going to be purchasing these multi-unit properties all in cash. Okay. You really shouldn't do that. There's ways to leverage money, which we talk about in the money class. And I also encourage you to get and have on your power team, a CPA, a financial planner, that you talk to and you work through with them about your plans and goals and how to do it, and talk with lenders, plural, not a lender. Okay. Because that's it's a huge part of real estate in general, but multi-unit specifically is leveraging your money and using OPM, other people's money, to purchase these properties. You manage them, okay, and you own them, and you have an appreciating asset, and you have money that you've borrowed from a lender. You have tenants that are paying you, so you can pay the lender. Okay, so that's how money works. And this, there's way more to it than I'm able to get into today. But I want you to familiarize yourself with these terms and these formulas, because this is going to be part of your analysis, because this is elements of the APOD. Because again, these are numbers that if you bring an opportunity, or I wouldn't say when you bring an opportunity to a lender and you say, Mr. Lender, I have this multi-unit apartment building that I'm interested in, and I'm really considering making an offer. Will you loan me the money? Mr. Lender is going to say, "Oh, that's great, Brian. Sure. What's the cap rate? What's the gross rent multiplier? What's the price per square foot?" Different lenders look for different metrics. So not every lender is going to use the same metrics. There's a lot of overlap, and many of them, use the same ones. Cap rate seems to be kind of the most popular, and gross rent multiplier is also another popular formula. And those formulas are basically really quick ways to go through and analyze the potential viability of a deal, if that makes sense. So cash flow is number one. And as an investor, as part of my plan, the first thing I'm looking at is cash flow. But again, I'm one investor looking at one thing. There are 2,600 investors, and in this group alone, they might look at it different. They look at it differently, again, because their goals and their plans and their strategies are different from mine. Okay. So, yeah, we're using the same asset class, but we're each looking at it a little bit differently. Cash flow that's a personal thing for me. It might be your primary metric that you look at. It might not be. But what cash flow is basically your NOI. Here's another acronym for you to write down. Your net, it's going to be the net operating income. I'll tell you how to get that in the next slide or two. Minus the mortgage. That's your cash flow, your net operating income minus the mortgage. The cash flow is basically what you get to put in your pocket after everything else has been paid. Um, Cap rate, again, this comes into when you're analyzing a deal and asking price on one end, and what your analysis shows, and what it would take for you to make this a deal that fits into your buy box. That's the value. So cap rate is the net operating income divided by the value. The value is not necessarily the asking price or the list price. In fact, it rarely is. Okay, but the value is, if you're on the buy side of the transaction, the value is what you're willing to pay. Okay, that's the big. I laugh at this every day, where people say my house is worth this or my building is worth this. That's what they think it's worth, but at the end of the day, that's not what it's worth. What it's worth is what someone is willing to pay for it. Okay, I'll show you properties that are on the market right now. A couple properties have been on the market for 6 months. Okay, what does that tell you? Well, what it tells me is that a seller is dug into, you know, I think the value is this. Well, it's been sitting on the market for 6 months. So, Mr. Seller, the market is telling you that your property is not worth what you think it is. It's worth what someone is willing to pay. Someone might be willing to overpay. We've been in a seller's market the past several years where buyers are overpaying. There's no question about it. It's head scratching at some times and frustrating for realtors, but that's another caveat of the market. Um, but anyway, so that's value. So that's I went off in the weeds a little bit about value. Gross rent multiplier is another formula. I'll tell you more about how to learn more about this and dig into it when you're doing your calculations. But again, the importance of these elements and these formulas are when you talk to a lender, okay? Because when you talk to a lender, the key component is, on the lender's side of the desk, is risk, okay? is how risky is this potential loan? Okay. The lender determines risk, a huge part based on their trust in you as the borrower. Okay. And so, how do you build trust with that lender? You build trust with the lender by knowing what the lender is going to be looking at and anticipating the lender's questions. And the lender's questions are going to be, what's the price per unit? What's the price per square foot? What's the cash on cash return? What's the gross rent multiplier? What's the cap rate? What's the cash flow? You need to, the quicker you know that stuff, the quicker the lender says, hey, Brian knows, Brian has done his homework. Brian knows what he's talking about. And especially you have a higher standard of trust you have to build if this is your first venture into a multifamily deal. You've got a higher mountain to climb than if you've done one, two, three, five other deals, especially if you've done them with this lender. Then it's like, oh, hey, Brian, let's go out to lunch. Oh, you got a new one? What is it? Oh, here you go. We'll write you a check because, again, they know you, they built trust, their risk has been minimized over that relationship that you've developed over the years that you've been then that you've been working with them. But going in, this is very daunting. And again, if it's much easier if you're a numbers person, I will not gladly, I will admit I'm not a great numbers person. Um, that's why I look at cash flow and a couple other metrics, but I look at, if I'm doing an investment, I want to look at cash flow, and that's what I want to focus on personally. I'm not a numbers person. These other numbers, they don't mean much to me. I will figure out what they are so I can explain it to the lender, but past that, they don't personally mean anything to me. That doesn't mean it shouldn't mean anything to you, because I know they're members of this group, and at our Thursday group, they sit at the table. And if somebody brings an opportunity to the table, they say, oh, what's the cap rate? Oh, okay, well, I'm not going to look at it unless the cap rate is X. Okay, that's their buy box. Okay, and that's fine, and that works for them, and that's fine. So cash flow, cap rate, gross rent multiplier. I'm going to give you a cheat sheet at the end, but I do encourage you to write these with your hand. I always say, what the hand writes, the mind remembers. So if you're going to start getting these numbers into your DNA, you need to write it down and know what they are, because you won't always just meet a lender going into their office and having a cup of coffee. You might meet them at a tailgate party or a wedding or whatever, where you're networking and you're looking for a new lender and you have an opportunity, and yada yada yada. You know the rest. All right. Elements of the APOD. I'll give you an APOD, and show you those numbers and all that kind of stuff. All right. Steps of the basic analysis. Again, you can do this old school with a legal pad and a pencil. You can do it with an Excel spreadsheet that, you can buy these off the buy them from any source, and any of these analysis software programs are really not a whole lot more than a glorified Excel sheet. Um, and there are a number of other ways to do it. The most successful investors that I know, they do like I've just been telling you. They take elements from various sources and create their own analysis formula based on their individual plan and their individual goals. But all the software, all the spreadsheets, even the legal pad with your pencil, you're going to need to know what these basic numbers are. All right. Um, and I'm going to walk you through these. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know what time it is, but there's a good chance I'm going to run a little bit over my hour. So I'll give you the heads up on that now. If you have to go, you have to go. I'm going to do my best to close this out. But calculate gross revenue. Gross revenue should be a number that's on the listing, whether it's on Zillow or in the multiple list service or whatever. It should be. It isn't always there. And let me do another caveat here for those of you who are new, who are a lot of you are new, is that when you look online, if you look on Zillow, if you look on the multiple list service, if you look on any of these sites that give you properties that are on the market, um, you know, do not trust the numbers that you get. Um, Take the numbers and do your first pass analysis based on the information that's provided. But we always say, and I was doing this yesterday at an inspection, because we were looking at stuff in a house that was different from what the description of the house was. And we say, the term is trust but verify. You take these numbers, you take the numbers that are provided by the seller, and you take them with a grain of salt. Okay. You trust them to start and you use them as a starting point, but you don't use them to make your decisions unless and until you have verified those numbers independently. Okay. So a lot of times when you're in the market, a lot of the properties that are going to be available are properties that are in a distressed condition and properties that have not been well managed. And by not being well managed, it means there might be commingling of funds, which means there might be any number of circumstances as to why the numbers are what is being reported. But we can kind of dive into that further at another time. But you're going to want to calculate the gross revenue. And here's what often is there's the actual revenue and there's the projected revenue. And quite often, the projected revenue is what gets published in the listing. It says, oh, projected, the pro forma or projected revenue for this property is $100,000 or whatever it is. And the sellers will use a projected number to justify their asking price. But the projected number, again, it might be realistic, it might be and it can often be a number where you look at the number and based on your experience or based on your analysis, you say, what on earth is this seller been smoking to come up with these numbers? Because they don't make sense on planet Earth. Okay. So you have to be careful of that. And you have to, this comes with experience. This comes from working with your team, your power team, meaning your realtor, your financial planner, other investors that you meet either through our group or in your other networking opportunities to come up with what is a realistic projected gross revenue number. Okay, so you take that's one number, then you have the actual number. So again, if it's a property that has been kind of not managed well, the rents are not necessarily at market rate, you know then you dig into it a little bit more, you find out, well, that's this tenant has been with me a long time, they've had some health issues, I never raised the rent, this and that. So that's what the actual is. You get into all of that in the due diligence, which is pre-sell in my next couple slides. Um, Calculate the gross revenue, calculate the operating expenses. Again, operating expenses, you want to get the actual expenses from the seller. They may or may not be willing to provide it. They may or may not even know it or have accurate records of it. You want to use that as a starting point. You don't want to use that as part of your decision as to whether you're going to buy the property or not, because you will have done your pro forma. So you will have done your preliminary proactive due diligence in anticipating what those expenses are. Um, and again, the primary expenses: taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities. Those are the four basic ones. There's no magic formula for each of those. That comes from you being in the business, talking with other investors, learning about it online, running it through AI, all of those things. You'll be able to calculate those expenses. And I give you a checklist on my cheat sheet as to what those expenses are. So you're going to want to familiarize yourself that you will be able to accurately estimate what those operating expenses are, despite what the seller tells you they are. Okay, if that makes sense. So you've got the revenue minus expenses. That's your NOI. Okay, your net operating income. That's a key number that all the lenders are going to want to look at, because the net operating income is going to indicate how much income from that property is going to be able to pay a note. That's basically it. So that's why that's a key number for the lenders. So that's why they use a formula, because they're not analyzing your deal and that's all they're doing today. They do dozens, if not hundreds of deals. So they say, all right, well, what's the cap rate? The cap rate is the formula, which is the net operating income divided by the purchase price, or the asking, the asking price is the starting point. All right. So that's your cap rate. Is it 7%, 8%, 12%, 2%, whatever. And we get into that more later. Cash flow. So, and then we get to cash flow, which again is number 5 on this list. It's number 1 on my list, but that's neither here nor there. That's your net operating income minus your mortgage, okay? Because you might calculate all these numbers and then figure out the money that you need to borrow, and then the note that you're going to have to pay off. That this cash flow number, quite often in your analysis, is going to be a negative number. And you will see that and say to yourself, well, wait a second, this is a negative number here. And here's the first mistake that most new investors make. I made it too for a long, long time. Is you see a property that's on the market, you run through these numbers, and then you come to number 5 and you say, wait a second, if I buy this property at this price, and this is my income and this is my expenses, I'm going to be losing money every month. Okay. And the novice investors always say, what have I done wrong in my analysis? They put it on themselves and think that they have done something wrong. And the answer is no, you have not done anything wrong. The numbers are the numbers. And one of our mantras, I don't have a tattoo, but if I got a tattoo, I would say the numbers don't lie. Believe the numbers. The numbers don't lie. The second biggest mistake that new investors make is they say, well, I must have done the analysis wrong, and this is a profitable property, and there are multiple bids on it, so other people are bidding on it. I must have missed something, so I'm going to buy it because these other people have done it, and they must know more than I know. Okay? No, I'm going to tell you that no right now. The numbers don't lie. And if the numbers don't work, if they don't work in general, number 1, or if they don't work, number 2, for your buy box, you see me, my metronome about your goals and your plan and your buy box. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then let's go on to the next one. Don't try and put a square peg in a round hole. Don't try and make, don't try and massage numbers to make a deal work that you think should work because you're spending time analyzing it. Okay. As you do and analyze a deal a day, again, as I said in the last slide, this bears repeating, is it you will gain confidence in your analysis skills. And that is a really valuable thing because then you'll be able to say, I've looked at, I've looked at this deal for the last hour. There's absolutely no way it makes sense. I'm not going to waste any more of my precious time on it. This doesn't make sense. It goes into the no pile, and let me go on to the next one. Okay. COCR is another acronym, cash on cash return. Again, is that is the cash on cash return as opposed to the cash flow. The cash flow is a dollar amount, okay, each month or each year. The cash on cash return is the rate of return that you're getting on the part of the deal that you have put your money in. So when you invest in a multi-unit property or when you invest in anything, you're going to have a down payment likely. The more inexperienced you are, likely the larger the down payment that the lender is going to require. So let's say in a deal it's 20% or 30%, of the deal that you have your hard-earned money in the deal. Okay, you're going to want to know what percent return you're getting on the money that you've taken out of your pocket on an annual basis. Is that 1%? Is that 5%? Is that 10%? Is that 20%? Okay, it has to be realistic, number one, but it has to be part of your plan. And you might be an investor who says, well, there are plenty in the group that do it this way, that they use cash on cash return as their primary metric. Okay, because they say to themselves, if I'm that investor, I say to myself, Brian, if I have to put 20,000 or 50,000 or $100,000 of my own money into this deal, okay, in order for me to fit my plan, okay, I need a cash on cash return of 10%. Okay. That means that, okay, let's it's say it's a $500,000 deal. I got to put 100,000 in. Okay. I got 100,000 of my own money in. That means that I have got to pocket $10,000 a year for it to be worthwhile to me. Again, you're the CEO of your own real estate investing business. If you're willing to take 5%, then 5% of the cash on cash return fits into your buy box. But if I'm an investor that says it better be 10% because I can take that $100,000 and I can invest it in something else and make a better cash on cash return. Again, that's an individual decision that I'm making. And that's the other thing about real estate investing, as you may have gathered so far, is you've got to make a lot of decisions on a very fluid, ongoing basis. All right. Um, I've taken a little bit more time than I intended to on these, but this is real important stuff. So that's it. So going on how to find deals, networking. Um, you need to get in a networking mindset. You need to learn how to get to be better at networking. If you are an introverted by nature, you need to learn to be extroverted. I'm thinking of this morning. It might not sound like it, but I consider myself very introverted by nature, but when I got into the real estate business, I had to learn that if you want to be successful in this business, you've got to become extroverted. So I consider myself an introverted extrovert, meaning I'm extroverted when I need to be, and I need to be in real estate. So I'm extroverted when I need to be, because you need to network, and networking is the most valuable thing, the way you will spend your time overall by far. Um, you can find deals through this group. We have deals and opportunities that we talk about when we meet in person on Thursdays. You're going to want to build your power team of what's called investor friendly realtors who have access to the MLS. You build a network of realtors who are all in the market 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You're not in the market that much. And so you leverage their time, experience, expertise, connections, okay, to find deals. Build your own catalog, okay? That's a very slow, methodical, long-term way. It again, if you have a long range plan of acquiring a portfolio of properties, you're going to want to target those properties. And I have a whole other class on, I call it going upstream. That's building a catalog of your portfolio before anybody even imagines that this stuff is for sale. Build your own catalog. You can buy, there's tons of places you can buy lists of supposedly motivated sellers. Make friends with property managers, okay? Because property managers, they manage properties. Perhaps their sellers or their owners will want to sell either today or at some point in the future. You're going to potentially, if you have a portfolio, you're going to want to hire a property manager. So you're going to want to get acquainted with property managers so you know who the good ones are and the not so good ones are. So it's easier for you to hire them when you need them, etc. So that's the basics of finding deals. Again, I do multiple other classes on finding deals and going upstream specifically, but this is just the overview of how to find deals. Um, Due diligence, I've got a couple worksheets here. Again, I do other classes on due diligence, but you can see how much information is here that I obviously can't cover in an hour. But I'm going to give you a couple worksheets that'll get you jump started. Now, when it comes to financing, there's a little bit of language that you need to learn, and I referred to it at the front, where uh, borrowing on multi-unit properties is different from borrowing on single family properties, even if that single family is a rental. So this is language, again, that the lenders use and that you need to get familiar with when you're approaching lenders and when you're initiating discussions with lenders. Okay. They'll go, oh, that's commercial or this and that. Well, what does that mean? So residential means one unit, but residential multifamily means 2 to 4 units. Okay. And these are designations by lenders. Okay. They're not my designations. Commercial multifamily means 5 or more units, which basically means lenders treat properties that are up to 4 units differently than 5 or more units. Okay. And there's different criteria they use, different requirements. Those are always changing. They're very fluid. Um, and this is where this area of the transaction is beyond the scope of my expertise. So that's why I partner with lenders. We have several lenders in the club, private lenders, conventional lenders, commercial lenders, individual, individual lenders. And they all have different criteria and different requirements. There are SEC requirements and, banking requirements, that hoops that they have to jump through, which in turn you have to jump through. but you just need to know this designation for purposes of today's session. Residential multifamily means 2 to 4 units. So when you're looking at properties and then you approach a lender, you say, Mr. Lender, I have a quad I'm looking at. Okay, residential multifamily. That means that loan is going to fit into that particular bucket. All right. So I encourage you, as on your to-do list, action items, start talking to lenders. Okay. You can come and meet us for coffee on Thursday at Union Rec. I know, Dana, you won't make the trip from Chicago very likely, but there are lenders at the table that are chomping at the bit, literally, to loan money. Um, Rates seem to be, they're teasing us again that they're going to be ticking down a little bit. So down is better than up, but it's not that much, but it's better than nothing. But start talking to lenders, okay? Because guess what? Lenders, they don't want a transactional relationship. Lenders have the same state of mind that I have as a realtor working with investors, okay? I like working with investors because they are repeat clients, okay? You're not buying a home that you're going to live in, like this house I showed yesterday. I love the family, I love doing it. They're going to buy the home and they're going to live in the home for the next 20, 30 years, okay? And real estate investors, I kind of can be kind of like, I joke about it. It's not a funny thing to joke about. Are like drug addicts. You have a deal, you're striving to do the deal, then you get the deal and you want to do the next deal. Okay. And that's the same way with lenders. All these lenders want to build long-term multi-deal relationships over a long period of time. So start building relationships with them. Introduce yourself as I'm a real estate investor. I'm new. You don't have to say you're new. Say, I'm a real estate investor. Mr. Lender, I'm looking, at some multi-unit properties. You can say, I've just looked at 33 properties this last Saturday, and I'm considering investment. Can we have a conversation about about working together? And that gets the ball rolling. So that's what you want to do. We have lenders in the group that I think the lenders in our group are the cream of the crop. Um, but there are lots of lenders out there. There are lots of good ones, and there are lots of not so good ones. But you have to do that, and that's part of your network and part of your power team. All right. Um, okay, so that's all right. 10:04, and I'm at the finish line for the presentation, but not for the handouts and the quick case study, which I didn't think I was going to do, but I didn't realize there were going to be as many properties on the market as there are today, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But small multifamily, why do you want to invest in small multifamily? Obviously, the leverage opportunities, and the real basic advantage to a small multifamily. If you have a 4-unit property and you have a vacancy, you're getting 3 rents and not 4. If you have a single family and you have a vacancy, you've got 100% vacancy rate and you make no money. So that's kind of an oversimplification of it, but there are tax advantages of it, and um, appreciation of the properties, and all of those other fun elements of it, which I think you guys already know, so you don't need me to tell you. How to get started? I know I kind of turned a fire hose on for you. How to get started, how to find the deals, how to analyze, do the due diligence. Financing, again, the starting point is to just start conversations with lenders. Learn the formulas, certainly. Start practicing your deal analysis skills, and then start talking to lenders. That's a great, pretty simple uh, action plan, is learn what these formulas are, start analyzing deals that you see. I'll send you a sheet that you can start with, and it'll be overwhelming, but maybe it needs to be overwhelming to start, but then you have to start diving into it and digesting it, not getting too frustrated, continue to trust in yourself, that kind of stuff. Um, Here's a few additional websites. Rentometer is a great resource that gives you the market rents for specific local markets in general and specific properties specifically. Um, there's a subscription. It's like anything. It's, I don't know, $30 a month, whatever it is. This one, again, if you're going to be using it on a regular basis, it's worth it. If you're not going to use it, it's not worth it. They have a free trial, and you can use it to analyze a certain number of deals before they ask you to pay. But it's a good resource for when you reach that point that you're going to be doing it on a regular basis. That's a site that's well worth it. There's one I like recently. It's called theclose.com. It's more for realtors and real estate agents, but it's got a lot of valuable information because it helps real estate agents work with real estate investors. So there's a lot of valuable content for real estate investors that, again, you can learn what a realtor does and how a realtor works with investors. Bigger pockets, you should know and sign up for a free account at least. You could spend 40 hours a week just on that one site alone, learning stuff and never scratch the surface. Investopedia is another good resource because, again, Investopedia is a website that people in the financial world use. So you're going to be interacting with people in the financial world, like other investors, like lenders. They use Investopedia as a resource. If it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for you. All right. Here are 3 books that I really encourage you to put on your uh, Christmas gift list, whether someone else gives it to you or you give it to yourself. Um, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, I consider this group's Bible. Um, this group would not be here if it were not for that book. Um, it's a great book. Investing in Duplexes, Triplexes, and Quads. This is kind of a little, back shelf uh, type of book, but it's a great resource. I've used it. I used it and learned from it and incorporated some of the stuff into my business. It's by Larry Loftis, Loftis. And here's a reference book that you should have on your shelf no matter what. What every real estate investor needs to know about cash flow by Frank Gallinelli, Gallinelli. Those are great books that you can, as the weather cools down, you can curl up with the fireplace and a cup of tea and start digesting this stuff in small points. Again, I encourage you to build the habit of analyzing a deal a day. When it comes to books like this or any books, yeah, it's kind of daunting. Holy cow, Brian, you just laid 3 books on me and I'm analyzing a deal a day. Well, again, break it down into small chunks. Well, 1 deal a day, read 10 pages out of the book a day. The Millionaire Real Estate Investor, it's 300 pages. You read 10 pages a day, you're done with it in a month. If you think of it that way, oh, yeah, I can do 10 pages a day. Okay. It's just smaller bites because this stuff is overwhelming. And I really say it and emphasize it because so many people, you fill up your plate. It's like going to Old Country Buffet. You fill everything on your plate. You can't eat it all, and then you get frustrated, and then you want to give up. Which I encourage you not to do. And it's just, and I learned this the hard way. Ken, I'm teaching you stuff that I learned mostly the hard way. So hopefully it's not a hard way for you guys. So next steps, join join the group, become a regular, become engaged with the group, make a commitment to yourself, take action every day. Uh, Several of you on the call I've had one-on-ones with already. I'd like to do one-on-ones on a regular basis because, you know, goals change, situations change, things like that. My primary role is to help you reach your real estate investing goals. So I'm open to a Zoom session, in-person session, phone call, text, whatever you want to do to talk more in specifics about building your individual plan. All right. Here's upcoming events. Dana, these Rainmaker sessions, these are the in-person sessions. All right. And so these other, well, not the AI. The AI is an in-person one.
Brian, are you calling me Dana? I'm sorry. My name's Dawn.
Dawn, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Apologize. I saw the DA and I just had a sorry about that. My apologies. Um, anyway, I've got a couple other of these scheduled on Meetup. And Dawn, I apologize again on that. This was anyway. Brain meltdown. So I have these coming up, and again, as we get into the new year, I'll be scheduling them more, and they will be announced through the meetup. So more about the club, these classes, coaching I've talked about, deals often flow through the group. I get calls regularly. Brian, I know you run a big investors group. I've got an opportunity. Do you think any investors would be interested in XYZ? And quite often we put deals together like that. Mostly we don't. Um, I Those of you who have been on this past year, I have not been I've not been charging a membership fee because we haven't been meeting that often. But now that I'm getting into this pattern with all of these classes, I have what I think is a extraordinarily reasonable one-time membership fee. I don't charge dues on a monthly basis. I don't have these mentorship programs or packages in the 4 or 5 figures. I just have what I consider a very modest membership fee that helps offset some of my expenses and compensates me a little bit for the time it takes me to put all this stuff together. So if you're inclined, I encourage you to pay that. You can certainly come to a few more events and see, yeah, if this is for me or maybe it's not for you. Whatever is okay. If you, I also encourage you to do it because it's sort of a commitment to yourself and to your education. And you say, all right, I've laid out a little bit of money here for my education and membership. But what you get is coaching. You get a plug and play power team that, like I say, I've hosted this group for over 16 years, and it's taken there are realtors in the group, there are investors, there are wholesalers, there are lenders, there are contractors, there are financial planners. There are lots of people that you need to assemble a power team from scratch anyway. You join the group, boom, you got plug and play. Plug and play. Brian, I got a text this week. Brian, do you have a good real estate attorney? I need a real estate attorney. Boom, there's a few of them in the group. I can plug you in right away. That value alone, it's taken me 16 years to put together, and you have that instantly. But anyway, that's it. If you can connect with me offline and say, yeah, Brian, I want to go ahead with the membership. I do PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, cash check, Bitcoin. I used to do Bitcoin. I think I could do that anyway. I apologize for going over here, but that happens sometimes. Um, it happens kind of regularly, to be honest with you. But let me go into the chat now. And if you guys are in the chat, okay, good question on good questions. What cap rate would be ideal? So there's not one number that's a good cap rate. The cap rate is based on market conditions in general and the specific market where the property is. I think typically a good realistic number is, I mean, this is just kind of general, but it's again, it's specific to each investor, is like 8% is it would be like something that's worth taking a second look. Um, but but again, that's just a general starting point. And I think that most sellers kind of know that, and they kind of know that when they're assigning a value, when they're assigning a value to the property, they know that a potential buyer is going to look at cap rate. So they're going to want to know what it is because that seller was once a buyer. So, but sellers have a funny way of forgetting forgetting that when they're a seller and they think that the property's worth a lot more than it is. So let me do these. So here is a PDF of quite an extensive uh, synopsis of the class, a cheat sheet. Um, and it's got a couple due diligence checklists in there. Um, and it's got a synopsis of my upcoming classes. Uh, the second sheet. So I went on this morning to our multiple list service, and there are a lot of multifamily properties on the market in Washtenaw County. So, Dawn, I'm gonna say your name multiple times, so I stop calling you Dana. I apologize again. Um, we're in Washtenaw County, which is one county west of Detroit. So we're about 40 miles west of Detroit. I don't know how familiar you are with the geographic area of Southeast Michigan. But Washtenaw County is the area that I work in. Primarily, it's Ann Arbor. Ypsilanti is the town next over, but there are other small towns like Milan and Whitmore Lake and Dexter and Chelsea and things like that. So this particular search I did a search for the whole county, multi-unit properties that are on the market today, any price range. And if you look at the list, the prices range from about 240 to well over 1.5 million to probably close to a couple million. There might be a couple others on there. You can look at those addresses specifically, and then you can look them up on your own on Zillow or whatever with using the addresses and get the information there. Or if something interests you a little bit more particularly, I can be happy to send you the detailed sheet. I did put an example of a detailed sheet. So there's this property. It's a 3-unit in Saline, Michigan, which is just a few miles south of Ann Arbor. 224 Monroe in Saline. It's a 3-unit property. It's been on the market about 40 days. It's listed by an associate of mine. They just reduced the price. But all of these, the moral of the story is this snapshot varies from week to week, month to month. All earlier this year, there were very few properties on the market at any given time because they would sell really quickly. So there were 10 to 15 properties on the market at any given time. I go into the multiple list service today. There's 33 properties on the market. Okay, that's an unusually large number in general, but also for this time of year. This is typically the slowest time of year. And thirdly, if you look on these sheets, it shows you the days on market. And on this sheet, there's a lot of properties that have been on the market for quite a while. And this is an indicator of, it's a snapshot of the market that I look at as a realtor is, how long are these properties on the market? And it tells you that now it's an indicator to me that it's much more of a buyer's market than it was even 6 months ago in this area. What it also tells me, what I'm also learning that I find out, because again, I'm in the market 40, 50, 60 hours a week talking to investors, is that more and more people are now wanting to liquidate their investment portfolios for various reasons. But the primary reasons are, I have a couple clients who have portfolios that I'm trying to market them. They've been doing it a long time. They say, Brian, I'm just sick of it. I want out. I've been doing it the last 20 years. I've been doing it 30 years. I originally built my portfolio as a legacy to hand to my children. Children, for whatever reason, children don't want anything to do with it. Okay, that's happened in my own situation. So that happens. That's a reason, and kind of a primary reason, because that a lot of people are starting to liquidate the properties that they've owned for a long time. So these are properties that have been owned for a long time. Owners have set a value on them, okay, and it's really based on the fact that it has been a seller's market for so long, and they have not come to the realization that it's now a buyer's market. And okay, and as an investor, as you guys are investors, you want it to be a buyer's market. Okay, if you're a buyer, you want it to be a buyer's market, not a seller's market. So it's a good time as a buyer, and the market goes up and down. I've been in the business 22 years, and I've seen ups and downs, and buyer's market, seller's market, buyer's market. It's been primarily a seller's market, and it's now, at least in this area, Chicago is different. I don't know, do you belong to the Chicago RIA, or have you looked into them? I follow them on Facebook. I think they're a huge organization. If you're looking to get involved in
Brand new to
Chicago
this,
real
so
estate,
whatever you can, I'm learning. So yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
Chicago RIA. Just look it up on Facebook or look it up, and they have multiple, but they're a group like mine. I do it a little bit different. They're on a much bigger scale than I am. But if you're in Chicago, you want to invest in Chicago, that plug into the Chicago RIA and go to an event before the snow starts falling. Um, anyway, yeah. So I'm way beyond my time as far as the train being into the station. So I hope this has been helpful. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can reach out to me through the meetup, um, or my contact information is all over the place. But look at the cheat sheet. It's got some checklists for you there to get familiar with. Um, the multifamily, it shows you just a snapshot of what's on the market today, the prices, the times, etc. I encourage you to use the worksheets, develop your own way to analyze deals. Natalie, I assume you kind of have something, because you own a few properties, that you have something that you have put together in the way that you analyze properties. Um, and then use the example of the APOD. And so you'll get the information from properties off the multiple list service, and then you kind of start to fill in the blanks on the APOD, and then you'll know what's missing, and then through practice, you'll determine or be able to estimate those numbers more accurately. So that's what I have today. Yeah, again, I apologize for the name mistake, and I
Oh, that's
apologize for going 30 minutes over my timeline. But that's what I have for you today. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to cut you loose and say, Dawn, I hope we pass the audition and you'll come back and join us again. Right now through the holidays, I'm just doing these Saturdays, once a month. After January, it might be a little bit more frequently, but I have to see how my schedule shakes out after the new year, and I don't know that yet. Um, so, but I am available in the meantime, kind of for any questions you might have. All righty. You learned something new today, Jake?
Every time.
Did you
Absolutely.
guys learn? Did you learn something you didn't know 90 minutes ago, Dawn?
I learned a lot.
Okay,
I
good.
learned a lot for sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Have a great day, and take care. Go Blue, go Bears, and Natalia. Maybe I'll see you Thursday. I know Jake, your schedule can't quite swing it yet, but maybe when I'm in
December, I'm
semester
hoping
break
for.
or
Yeah.
something, you
December.
could
That's my goal.
you could squeeze it in.
Yeah.
Um, we'll be there, and you'll have fun. So, all right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Brian. Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
Take care.
You too.